Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you very much for joining us today. We'd like to seek your good wishes and your blessings so that we can continue to um, do an overview of the Bhagavatam. So we're at third canto, 22nd chapter. And just a quick overview of what we did on Monday. So Maitreya Rishi, he described more details to Vidur about the creation, quite a lot of detail, in fact. This Visarga, Brahma's creation. And then he was asked the question by Vidur about the activities of Manu. So he described Swayambhu Manu, and also Kardamuni, who was to marry his daughter, Devahuti. So Kardamuni was performing tapasya. He wanted the Lord's assistance. Lord Brahma, his father, had asked him to help him populate the world. So for 10,000 years, he did the austerities. He received the darshan of the Lord, and the Lord granted him whatever he wanted, and that was a suitable, appropriate wife so that he can do his duty to his father. And then Manu came to Kadam Muni with his daughter, and that's where we left off. So this is a verse from this chapter. Ayata yamas tasya san yamasvantara yapaha shravanto dayato Vishnu kurvato bhavata bhavata.
Consequently, although his duration of life gradually came to an end, his long life, consisting of a Manvantara era, was not spent in vain, since he ever engaged in hearing, contemplating, writing down, and chanting the pastimes of the Lord.
So this is a description of Swayambhu Manu, because he's got a very, very long life, but he didn't waste his life. He did not spend it in vain. And because he was constantly engaged in hearing and chanting about the pastimes of the Lord. So this chapter is called The Marriage of Kardam Muni and Devahuti. Manu, feeling modest, glorifies Kardam Muni's superior position as a Brahmin. He offers sweet words, accepts Kardam Muni's praise as a form of instruction for him, a little like encouragement. So this is very good, actually, because often we maybe on the receiving end of some good feedback, and we should not take that in a proud way, but actually, like here, Manu has taken the praise as a form of instruction to do better. So this is really important. That's the way to try to reduce the false ego that comes out of appreciation. It means we've got to do better, improve what we're doing. So yes, it might be okay what we're doing, but there's always going to be room for improvement. So any good comments, good feedback, it's like Manu's attitude. How I'll take this as an instruction to improve myself. So, because Kadamuni glorified Manu as good as the demigods. So, and of course, Manu is as good as the demigods, but he took that guidance, that good feedback in a positive light, not as increasing his ego. So that was good. For the protection of the Brahmanas, the Lord created the Kshatriyas, the Brahmans are said to be his heart, and the Kshatriyas his arms. That is why the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas protect each other, as well as themselves. And the Lord protects them through each other. This is quite a interesting scenario. So the Brahmins protect the Kshatriyas, Kshatriyas protect the Brahmin give good advice, Kshatriyas give physical protection, and they protect themselves. But of course, the Lord protects them through each other as well. Manu thanks his great fortune. on seeing Kadam Muni. Manu reveals that his highly chaste and qualified daughter Devahuti has fixed her heart on Kadam after hearing of his qualities from Narad Muni. He begs Kadam Muni to accept her as his wife. Manu said that he had heard that Kadam had not taken a vow of perpetual celibacy and was prepared to marry. So very respectful, because a lot of the sages, they take the lifelong vow of celibacy, but he hadn't heard that of Kadam, so he came before Kadam, not to unnecessarily disturb him, but to offer his daughter in marriage. Kadam Muni praised Devahuti, whose beauty was so great that even Vishvavasu, the Gandharva, his mind stupefied with infatuation, fell from his aeroplane after seeing her. He gladly accepted her as his wife on condition that once she conceived, he will leave to perform bhakti. So he had a long-term plan or a medium-term plan, and he made it a condition. So this shows the renounced mood of Kadam Muni, the devotee mood of Kadam Muni. Even though his father, Brahma's order, was to procreate, the highest authority for the Muni is the Supreme Lord. So this is another very nice point. His father had ordered him, procreate, which he is following, but ultimately the highest authority is the Supreme Lord. Hence why he said to Manu that after Devahuti provides the children, I will leave home and focus on bhakti. So the authority, the highest authority is Supreme Lord, not just for the Muni, but for everyone. Kadam became silent at that point and smiled, thinking of his worshipable Lord Vishnu, who has a lotus on his navel. As he silently smiled, his face captured the mind of Devahuti, who began to meditate upon the great sage. Devahuti's mother Satarup gave the couple valuable presents for a dowry. Unable to bear the separation from his daughter, Manu poured tears from his eyes again and again. Finally, they bid her an affectionate farewell before traveling back to their capital through many beautiful hermitages. Overjoyed to know of his arrival, Manu's subjects came forth from Brahmavarta and greeted him with songs, prayers, and musical instruments. The city of Barhismati was so called because Lord Vishnu's hair dropped there from his body when he manifested himself as Lord Boar. As he shook his body, his very hair fell and turned into blades of evergreen kusha grass, by which the sages worship the Lord. This kusha grass is very auspicious. Manu himself spread the kusha grass and worshipped. So kusha grass is, of course, only available in Bharat. And usually we get some mats when we come back from Bharat, kusha mats. Very good for sitting and doing your bhakti. Swayambhava Manu was a saintly king. Although absorbed in material happiness, he was not dragged to the lowest grade of life, for he always enjoyed his material happiness in a Krishna-conscious atmosphere. Consequently, although his duration of life gradually came to an end, his long life is 306 million years. It was not spent in vain, since he ever engaged in hearing, contemplating, writing down, and chanting the pastimes of the Lord. So this is the end of chapter 22. Are there any questions or any comments from anybody? Anybody like to, if you read something and you wanted to share?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Nilekamaji.
Hare Krishna, everyone. While reading this, I thought of how Devahuti, just hearing from Narad Muni, she has accepted Karda Muni as her husband. And it's similarly to um, Rukmini Devi, who just hearing the glories of Lord Krishna, accepted Lord Krishna as her husband. I was just comparing these two. And also the kusha grass, we have it in Mauritius too.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's nice.
Yes, because the South Indian, when they do their some rituals, they use it a lot. And also when somebody dies, Indian background people, so we put it first and then put the sheet and then put the dead body on it. So,
very good. Nice to share that. Thank you. Have you actually seen the plant, the kusha grass?
Oh yeah, I had at my place,
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. Quite thick grass, right?
Yes, it is, and you can cut yourself if you are not too careful with it. Yeah, but it is very, like, it grows like tulsi. It doesn't grow everywhere in clean place like tulsi plants.
Okay, very good. Yeah, it's good. Thank you for sharing that. Very good. Interesting. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, and you see, Haribol, Nabi Hare Krishna to everyone. I haven't seen you for the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Kusha grass, some Brahmins will use them in yagyas and all that. It's some, especially when they do the after somebody passes away, and so yeah, it's quite interesting how the Devahuti was handed over to Kardama Muni. It's a like kind of an arranged marriage situation where father feels that he has to leave his daughter with a worthy husband. And this tradition was carried out, but Prabhupada in the purport explains how it's when the girls are just left to freely choose and all that, and it does. And then it's interesting because also Kardama Muni said that she hasn't, Devahuti has not committed herself to anybody else as well.
That's
It's interesting, and it's only on those conditions. Also, she's free to choose get married to Kardama Muni, but Kardama Muni wanted to know whether she had actually committed herself to somebody else and all that, and but she was going to be a chaste and very qualified, cultured lady as well. Yeah.
And the
that's Sanatana Dharma.
Aditi, no, sorry, not Aditi, Diti, because Diti, we'll see later on how, Devahuti was so chaste and so devoted to Kardam that she, she had desires, but she didn't, they were all subservient to Kardam Muni's desires. Whereas Diti, if you recall, she wanted a child and it wasn't the right time, but it didn't matter. She insisted.
Yeah, and she insisted, and then was obviously his law's arrangement somehow that she gets blessed and the Jaya and Vijay take birth as the demons, and so interesting.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you. Thank you. So chapter 23. Sahan Bhagavato Nunam Vanchita Maya Dridam Yatvam Vimuktidam Prapya Namumukshaya Pandanat.
My Lord, surely I have been solidly cheated by the insurmountable illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For in spite of having obtained your association, which gives liberation from material bondage, I did not seek such liberation.
This is Devahuti, who's lamenting somewhat. So we'll talk about that in a little while. So this chapter is entitled Devahuti's Lamentation. Knowing Kardam Muni's desires, Devahuti pleased him by serving him as follows. She was chaste, she was understanding her husband, great love for him, intimate, great respect, controlled senses, and sweet words, giving up lust, pride, envy, greed, sinful activities, and vanity. She worked sanely and diligently, served him without caring for her own body. So these are really incredible qualities that she showed, how she served Kardama Muni. Then Kardama Muni blessed her. Seeing Devahuti thin and weak from neglect, Kardama is both pleased and astonished. He blesses her with results of his own Krishna conscious activities. So this is amazing, actually. Devahuti bashfully begs him to fulfill his promise to beget children. Devahuti requests her skinny body to be rejuvenated and rendered fit for him. She also asks Kardam to think of a suitable home. These are natural. These are natural things, especially for the ladies, because they have that mentality of wanting to preserve the family, have a family, keep the family, protect the family. That's right. And Kardam, his mood was to do the Krishna consciousness, but when he saw his wife was so devoted to him, he's so open-hearted, he said, yeah, everything I've done, you get the benefit. You take the benefit. Of course, we know that whatever the husband does, the chaste wife always gets half of that anyway. So whatever bhakti is done by the husband, half of the benefit goes to the wife in any case, which is very interesting. So she doesn't actually have to do much, and she gets a lot of benefit. But Devahuti was insanely worshipping, serving Kardam, so much so she became very skinny. And it said she was very dirty as well, because she was always doing tapasya with Kardam Muni. So very interesting. To create a suitable place for the union, Kardam created a 7-story jeweled aerial mansion surrounded by extensive gardens. The mansion and gardens were fully equipped with all household paraphernalia, beautifully decorated with jewels and flowers, and extremely pleasing. So this is a very interesting aerial mansion, which flies, a 7-story aerial mansion, no less. Because there were thousands of maidservants that were serving Devahuti. So they needed somewhere to stay. So they had a phenomenal place. This is the power of the Muni, power of the great sage, create such wonderful creation for him and his wife. Even after seeing this beautiful airplane, Devahuti was not pleased, as her body was emaciated and dirty. Kardam asked her to take bath in the desire-fulfilling lake Bindu Sarovar. Diving in, Devahuti bathed, dressed, and was ornamented by 1,000 maidservants. Her beauty was revived by their care and attention. When she thought of her great husband, she, along with all the maidservants, at once appeared where he was. She was amazed to find herself in the presence of her husband and to witness his yogic power. Universal travels. Though seemingly attached to his beloved consort, the sage did not lose his glory. Kardam took his beloved Devahuti on a journey through the universe. So this is like a belated honeymoon, isn't it? Can anybody match this one? He took her on a journey through the universe. They stopped to enjoy the atmosphere in many heavenly gardens. By the Lord's mercy, they surpassed even the demigods. Kardam achieved such powers because of his being a devotee and not because of his proficiency in yoga. So yogic mystic powers they can obtain through yoga, but in the Bhagavatam, it says that Kardam achieved all these powers, not because he was a yogi, because he was a devotee. So a devotee naturally acquires these mystic powers. He doesn't have to separately endeavor. Not that he wants anyway, but in this case, Kardam Muni wanted to please Devahuti. And this is quite natural, isn't it? When one gets married, one has a little holiday and takes the spouse with them to perhaps a foreign land. But in this case, it was just not just a foreign land, but it was throughout the universe. Extraordinary. After showing his wife the globe of the universe and its different arrangements, full of many wonders, the great yogi Kardam Muni returned to his own ashram, dividing himself into 9 forms. Kardam enjoyed with Devahuti for many years, which passed just like a moment. Towards the end, they conceived 9 daughters, whom immediately took birth. So again, we can see the contrast with Diti's children, who were in the womb for 100 years. These 9 daughters immediately took birth. Kardam thus fulfilled his promise of producing offspring. That promise was in the 21st chapter. So he wanted to leave home for his real concern of spiritual realization. Interesting, these 9 forms. It's contrasted with Krishna's expansion as when he expands. Krishna's expansions can do anything and everything. They are independent of each other, whereas it's described that Kardam Muni's 9 forms were dependent on each other. So this is the difference between the soul and the supreme soul. He's independent completely. Seeing her husband about to leave, Devahuti was distressed, feeling she had wasted the opportunity of his association. She begged him to instruct her in spiritual knowledge and make her fearless. So one of the acharyas, I can't remember which one, he said, this is an indirect request to Kardam for a son. After Kardam went to the forest, the daughters would find their own suitable husbands and go away from home. So who will protect her? So in Vedic custom, the Vedic custom is that the daughter is protected by the father, then she gets married, and the husband will protect her as the wife, and then they will have children, and the children will protect the daughter.
That's just the son.
It's the son, yeah.
And if there's no son, then she goes back to the father's place to be
Good
protected
point.
by her brothers.
But of course, in current age,
The daughters are regarded.
yeah, daughters are generally better than the sons. So Devahuti regretted that they simply wasted so much of their time in sense gratification and neglected to cultivate knowledge of the Supreme Lord. Anyone whose work is not meant to elevate him to religious life, anyone whose religious ritualistic performances do not raise him to renunciation, and anyone situated in renunciation that does not lead him to devotional service must be considered dead, although he's breathing. This is quite an interesting verse. So this one is towards the end of this chapter. Very, very interesting verse. So whatever we do, we try to improve our position from a spiritual point of view, even in this world. So work, rise it to religious life to renunciation, from renunciation to bhakti. Interesting. Any questions, any comments on that? Okay, we can go to chapter 24.
3.
Sorry?
3 today. I didn't look at this one.
Oh, okay. Sa eva bhagavan adya
Helanam snagananayana Gahesu jato gramyamam Yasvayam paksha poshana. Not considering negligence of ordinary householders like us, that very same Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in our homes just to support his devotees.
What was that? Not considering the negligence of ordinary householders. So Devadhuti is explaining that how the Lord is so kind. So this chapter is called Renunciation of Karda Muni. His instructions. He pacifies Devadhuti. He praises her good qualities and explains that the Lord himself, being worshipped by her, will soon become her son. Why is he so confident about this? Anybody know?
Because while Kandamuni was doing his tapasya, the Lord appeared personally in front of him and told him to have 9 girls and then 1 boy. He would come personally as his son.
Fantastic. Well done, Mataji. Well done. Very good. Excellent. He advised that she should worship the Lord with great faith through sensory control, religious observances, austerities, and gifts of money in charity. The Lord will then appear and explain to her the knowledge of Brahman and cut the knot of attachment in her heart. Devadhuti respectfully and faithfully followed her husband's advice. Worship the Lord. After many years, the Supreme Lord, having entered the semen of Kardam, appeared in Devadhuti's womb. The Lord is welcomed by the demigods, sounding musical instruments, dancing and singing his glories. Brahma praises Kardam for following his instructions and states that he is an example of how the son, disciple follows the father or guru. Brahma instructs Kardam how to arrange the marriage of his 9 chaste daughters by offering them to the great sages. So there was 9 great sages and there was 9 chaste daughters. Brahma then explained to Devadhuti the glories of her divine son. Anybody know his name?
Kapil Dev.
Kapil Dev, that's right. Who will have golden hair and eyes like lotus petals and travel the world. 9 daughters married. So this is verses 20 to 25. Kardam Muni gives his daughters in marriage to the 9 great sages, who then joyfully return to their hermitages. So these are the daughters and the sages that they got married to. Kala went to Marichi. Anushuya went to Atri Rishi. Shraddha to Angira Muni. Havirbu to Pulatsya. And who was Pulatsya the father to?
Ramana grandfather, Prabhuji.
Whose?
Pulatsya is.
Whose grandfather?
Ravana grandfather.
Who? Say that again.
Ravana's grandfather, Prabhuji.
Oh, Ravan, grandson. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's right. Well done. Correct. Good boy. Well done. Well done. Gati to Pulaha, Kriya to Kratu, Khayati to Brigu, Arundhati to Vashisht. That's the same Vashisht, right, as in Ramachandra. Shanti to Atharva. Good. Kardam worships Kapil. Kardam, understanding that the Supreme Lord has descended, approaches Lord Kapil and surrenders to him. Worshipping him with sweet words, he praises Kapil as a supreme person, full of all opulences, all power, and the Lord of time and the universe. Kardam requests permission to renounce the world. This is such an interesting situation. The Lord has come into your family. And you're asking the Lord, can I leave home? This is so unusual. I remember asking Guru Maharaj about this. Why would you do that? Why? If the Lord is in your home, why not serve him? And
he wanted to keep his promise, Prabhuji, because he promised that as soon as a boy is born, he will leave home.
yeah, but he knew
that
about
the Lord is going to be his son.
Yes, but he knew, and even though he knew, he promised to leave home, because he knew that when the son is born, the mother will be protected by the son, so he has no job at home, so he left, because he was a very detached Brahmana, right?
Yeah, yeah. Maharaj basically said, what did you say?
Show an example.
Show an example. You're showing an example.
Yeah, if the son is there, then he don't have to stay.
Yeah, you're showing an example. That's what Guru Maharaj said. And I must admit, this actually took me a long time to get my head around. Because if the Lord is in your home, surely the whole idea of bhakti yoga is to please the Lord by serving him. And you've got the opportunity to serve him directly, personally. So took a while, but there are some reasons. To follow the Vedic injunctions, one should leave home at a certain age. So that's setting the example, right? Setting a good example. Don't just stay home and die at home. You leave before that time comes. To avoid the mixture of Dasyaras and Vatsalyaras, because he was fixed in his rasa as servant. That was his mood. So he didn't want to mix that mood. He didn't want to taint that Dasyaras with Vatsalyaras, which he would have. Because as a father, naturally you have this mood of Vatsalya that comes with it. So he didn't want to, his mood was simply das. He didn't want to, he wasn't in the mood of Vatsalyaras. He was in the mood of Dasyaras. So that's another issue. Lord will make him renounce anyway. Why not renounce immediately? The Lord will tell him, you have to go. Time has come. So before the Lord tells him, he went. I can relate that to that because I chopped my hair off before the Lord took it away. Well, there wasn't much to chop off anyway. Most important is to worship and remember the Lord constantly. So this is an example that even the Lord is with you.
Separation
actually worship inside, and we'll see that for Sharad Purnima.
Gopis.
Yeah, with the gopis. How even when the Lord is not present before them, the gopis were completely in remembrance of separation from the Lord. And that actually intensified their love for the Lord. So those are reasons why he left. I think I've finally sort of got my head around it. Took a while. Oh, what's this? Okay. So final parts. Kapil said that he appeared as Lord Kapil Dev said that he appeared as Kardam's son because he had promised this previously. So that's in the 21st chapter of the third canto. In order to revive knowledge of Sankhya, which had been lost in time. Kapil sanctions Kardam's desire to wander as a mendicant to perfect his spiritual life and become fearless by surrendering to him. He also promises to instruct his mother in Sankhya philosophy, so she can also become self-realized and become free from fear. So the son is doing his duty by promising his father, don't worry about your wife, don't worry about my mother, I will look after her. Kardama Muni circumambulates the Lord with a pacified mind. He leaves for the forest, wandering silently in the forest, practicing pure devotional service. He becomes free from false ego, material affection, and achieved self-realization. Kardam sees the Lord as follows. The Lord, Supreme Lord in everyone's heart, Shirodakshaya Vishnu. And then he saw everyone existing on him as Karanodakshaya Vishnu. So it's interesting how he sees the Lord. He finally goes back home to Godhead, as foretold also by the Lord in this 21st chapter. So that's the end of the 3 chapters. So I think we can go straight to the advice. Unless there's any questions or comments, we can go through the advice. Lessons, sorry. Okay.
Everyone.
Hare Krishna.
So no questions, no comments.
No.
So we will start with the lessons.
Yeah.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So lesson from Canto 3, chapter 1. If we make our home a temple, the Lord will definitely visit us. Chapter 2. In this age of Kali, our only tapasya is to chant the holy name of the Lord. Chapter 3. We all need a guru to guide us on the spiritual path. Chapter 4. No matter how learned one may be, one should not try to instruct someone who is well versed in spiritual knowledge and who is older than them. Chapter 5, the Lord's external energy is Maya, and through her the entire material world is created. Chapter 6, we should always engage in discussion of the activities and glories of the Lord, which are nicely written by the sages for our benefit. Chapter 7, by serving the spiritual master, one develops transcendental ecstasy in the service of the Lord, who vanquishes one's material distress. Chapter 8, the Supreme Personality of Godhead spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam to the great sages for the benefit of those entangled in the material miseries. Chapter 9, if we want to escape the anxieties of this material world, we need to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Chapter 10, all living entities are struggling with the forces of material nature, but by transcendental knowledge and realization, and by surrendering unto the Lord, we can control this material energy. Chapter 11, the Lord controls all the physical movement by his potency, time potency, yet he is not visible in the physical world. Chapter 12, we should always try to control our anger, because once escalate, anger turns into wrath. Chapter 13, we should live our life in pursuance of the principle of devotional service and worship. Can you read this bit, please? And worship?
And worship of the Lord by performance of yajna.
Of yajna. Chapter 14, as a good combination for spiritual advancement is needed in the human society, thus boys should be trained as brahmacharis and girls in the virtue of chastity. Chapter 15, only in the human form of life one can attain perfect religious knowledge. Even the demigods desire to have such life. Chapter 16, the water of the Ganges sanctifies the free world because it has washed the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Chapter 17, for peace to prevail in society, we need to follow regulation in life. Otherwise, we will have to undergo the stringent reactions of nature's law. Chapter 18, no one can surpass the potencies of the Lord, and no one should deride the transcendental form of the Lord as material. Chapter 19, we should always abide to rules and regulation in every aspect of life and respect our opponents. Chapter 20, as soon as one forgets one's primary duty, which is to render devotional service unto the Lord, one creates the atmosphere of sense enjoyment. Chapter 21, the Lord knows. Sorry, somebody say something?
No, that was good.
Yeah. Okay, chapter 21, the Lord knows that his devotees need what his devotees needs, and without asking, he make arrangement to fulfill those needs. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Yay. Thank you so much, Maji. Very good. Okay, Madhusudan Prabhu?
Hey, Haribol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Quite interesting chapters, these, and a lot of instructions, isn't it? And even the personalities involved, Kardama Muni, Devahuti, and then Kapila Dev, and Prabhupada quite specifically wrote a whole book dedicated to the teachings of Lord Kapila, afterwards. Right. So that's quite easily available, And for me, the instructions are quite enlightening in a way. One thing that stood out was Devahuti was so beautiful. And Kardama Muni himself comments that even a Gandharva fell off his flying plane when he saw her playing with a ball. I thought, why again there's a reference to a woman playing with a ball, and so she was that beautiful, Devahuti, when she was with her father. Then obviously she gets married to Kardama Muni, and she so dedicatedly served Kardama Muni in a very austere way. These days, many women, we haven't got this, I'm leaving you, And before you know it, is marriage and then divorce and all that, So it's willing to put up like Devahuti did, but she was rewarded by her husband. So chapter 22, we should study the character of Swayambhuva Manu, who was a saintly king and taught by example. And Srila Prabhupada comments in his purport that although Swayambhuva Manu, the ruler of the three material worlds, appeared to be absorbed in material happiness, he was neither in the mode of goodness nor in the mode of passion or ignorance, but he was in a transcendental stage. So Swayambhuva Manu, his position was quite unique. And then when he went back, he looked after his subjects in a very nice way in his whole city. And he was a king of a city where a hair of one of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it fell there, and the whole city developed around there, especially reference to Kusa grass and all that. So it's nice, interesting, all these parts here. Chapter 23, this is quite good because, Devahuti sets an excellent example of a chaste wife of Kardama Muni. And she also realizes in her request below, after her very opulent married life, well provided by her devotee husband, Kardama Muni. So my personality of Godhead, Supreme Person, my Lord, surely I have been solidly cheated by the insurmountable illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For in spite of having gained your association, which gives liberation from material bondage, I did not seek such liberation. So Srila Prabhupada actually, recognized that an intelligent person should realize good opportunities. The first opportunity is the human form of life. And the second opportunity is to take a birth in a suitable family where there is cultivation of spiritual knowledge. This is rarely obtained. The greatest opportunity is to have the association of a saintly person. So Devahuti was conscious that she was born as a daughter of an emperor. She was sufficiently educated and cultured, and at last she got Kardama Muni, a saintly person and a great yogi, as her husband. Still, if she did not get liberation from the entanglement of material energy, then certainly she would be cheated by the insurmountable illusory energy. So actually the illusory energy, material energy, is cheating everyone. People do not know what they are doing when they worship the material energy in the form of goddess Kali or Durga for material boons. They ask Mother, give me some great riches, give me a good wife, give me fame, give me victory. But such devotees of her goddess Maya or Durga do not know that they are being cheated by that goddess. So it's important to seek out liberation by seeking association of pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. So that's the instruction that comes out from this, that Devhuti had so much, she wanted liberation at the end, despite all this life that she led. Chapter 24 instructs that through Devahuti's character about birth of living entities in comparison with the Lord's so-called birth, which is at his free will and divine. So just as an ordinary living entity takes his birth by taking shelter of the semen of a certain living entity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts the shelter of the semen of his devotee and comes out of as his son. This manifests his full independence to act in any way. And it does not mean that he is an ordinary living entity forced to take birth in a certain type of womb. So Vedas actually instructs on performing samskar, to this garbhata sanskar, to beget children that are of good divine qualities as well. So here, it is mentioned that, Prabhupada mentioned that Swayambhuvas, because Lord Brahma is actually Swayambhuva. Swayambhuva meaning that he is not born of a mother and a father. He is self-born out of a lotus flowers because he's the first living entity. And then obviously the others, he creates the mechanism of a semen, sperm, egg, or whatever, So even whether you're born as a cow or as a dog or whatever living entity, each living entity has to come through some form of egg and a sperm, or some reproductive system has to be there. But the Lord can actually take that process, but doesn't mean that he is actually an ordinary person as well. Just as Prabhupada mentions in the purport as well, just like Lord Narasimha, they have just appeared out of the pillar. If the Lord wants to appear from anywhere, he can appear from anywhere. So if he's through a semen of his pure devotee, he can do that as well. That's his free will and his independence. So, this is, Srimad Bhagavatam is amazing. It doesn't leave out the fact that, this process of conception, which we saw earlier on as well, when Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, they were born. It's even, who got conceived first, and then who got delivered from the womb first. It's quite to that kind of detail, So we get knowledge of embryology and all sorts of things from Srimad Bhagavatam, which is properly, in process with Sanatana principles. Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you very much. Very good. Okay. So any questions, any comments? Or is everybody quite satisfied with the learning and the reading? I hope everybody's managing to keep up. Okay, so we can turn to the Shinga Kavach and pray for the protection of Kadamba Kanan Swami. I hope he's getting better. Okay. Oop. Okay, how do I come end the show? Good, sure. Okay, so
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. There is another Swami, the Bhakti Madhurya Govinda Goswami. He also had an operation, and he is kind of paralyzed because he had operation of the lower back. And yeah, we should pray for him also.
Yes. What was his name again? Bhakti
Madhurya Govinda Goswami.
And where is he?
He is in India.
Oh, okay. 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 Thank you so much for letting us know.
Okay.